Emily Thompson had always been the sunshine of the family. Her laughter lit up their modest home in Austin, Texas. Her parents, Richard and Linda, doted on her endlessly, while her older brother Michael practically worshipped the ground she walked on. There had never been a request too small or a wish too grand. To them, she was the baby of the family, the precious last gift of youth before age settled in. But something changed when Emily turned 17. It was subtle at first, shorter conversations at dinner, longer hours in her room, fewer updates about her day at school. Linda thought it was just the usual teenage mood swings. Richard thought she needed a little more freedom. Michael, however, felt something deeper. He'd seen this kind of distance before in college friends who lost themselves chasing what felt like freedom, but only found regret. "And everything okay?" Michael asked one evening as he knocked gently on her bedroom door. A beat of silence. Then her voice came through, muffled. "I'm fine." He opened the door anyway. Emily sat cross-legged on her bed, her textbooks open in front of her but untouched. Her phone buzzed beside her, lighting up every few seconds. She looked up, her hazel eyes tired but defiant. Michael smiled gently and sat at the edge of her bed. "You've been quiet lately. Want to talk?" She shrugged. "There's nothing to talk about." "You sure?" Another shrug. "It's just school. And I'm tired of being treated like a little kid." Michael tilted his head, sensing there was more, but decided not to push. "All right, but you know you can always talk to me, right? No judgment." She looked away. "I know." He stood up, patting her shoulder. "I'm here whenever." But that night, after lights went out, Emily slipped out through her window. She walked 2 blocks down to the corner gas station, where a dark blue car waited. Jaden leaned against the hood, smirking when he saw her. "You're late," he teased, pulling her in for a quick kiss. "I had to wait until my brother went to sleep." "Ugh, your family sounds exhausting." "They are," Emily sighed. "They still treat me like I'm 10. Jaden chuckled and opened the passenger door for her. "Well, you're with me now. Let's go somewhere you can breathe." They drove around town, windows down, music blasting. Jaden was everything Emily thought she needed: older, rebellious, exciting. He didn't ask her to do homework or explain where she was going. With him, there were no rules. Back home, Linda quietly knocked on Emily's door at midnight. "Honey, I brought you some chamomile tea." No answer. She opened the door to find the room empty, the bed still made. Panic gripped her chest. "Richard," she shouted. They searched the house. Nothing. Michael checked the backyard, then the street. "She's gone," he said through gritted teeth. Richard grabbed his keys. "I'm going to check around town." Michael shook his head. "Let me handle this, Dad. I think I know who she's with." The next morning, Emily slipped back into her room before sunrise. Her hair was messy, her mascara smudged. She didn't even bother to change out of her hoodie before collapsing onto the bed. When she woke up, Michael was sitting at her desk, arms crossed. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. "I should be asking you that." Emily rolled her eyes and pulled the blanket over her head. "Just leave me alone." Michael's voice was calm but firm. "You left in the middle of the night without telling anyone. Mom was crying. Dad was about to call the police. It's none of your business. You're my sister." "Of course it's my business. Jaden cares about me more than any of you do." Michael scoffed. "He's 19 and hanging out with a high school junior. That's not love, Em. He listens to me. He understands." "No. He manipulates you. There's a difference." Emily sat up, furious. "You don't know him." Michael stood. "No, but I know you. And this isn't you." Before he left, he paused by the door. "You're smart. Emily, don't trade everything that makes you amazing just to feel wanted by someone who doesn't deserve you." She didn't respond. But after he was gone, she stared at her phone for a long time before tossing it to the floor. Something inside her, a whisper of doubt, a flicker of guilt, had begun to stir. Emily felt like she was living in two different worlds. At home, she played the part of the quiet, tired teenager. She barely spoke at dinner, kept her door closed, and avoided eye contact with her parents. Her mother continued to worry silently, leaving small notes of encouragement on Emily's desk. Her father said little, but his disapproval was written all over his face. Michael had stopped trying to lecture her, though he watched her closely, always watching. At school, she went through the motions. She sat through classes without paying attention, skipped lunch to text Jaden under the bleachers, and lied to her teachers about why she hadn't turned in assignments. Her grades, once respectable, began to plummet. But she didn't care, not when Jaden was waiting for her after school in his beat-up car, ready to take her anywhere that wasn't home. Jaden brought her to places she had never been, back roads that led to lakes hidden behind trees, rooftops where they could see the whole city at night, rundown diners that served greasy food and bottomless coffee. He talked about getting out of Austin, about heading west to California, starting over. Sometimes he even talked about bringing her with him. "I'm serious," he said one night, flicking ashes from his cigarette out the window. "You and me. We don't need anybody else." Emily, curled up in the passenger seat, smiled dreamily. "I'd love that." "You're different," he added, running a hand through her hair. "Not like the others. You get me." That one line made her heart flutter. At home, Linda noticed that Emily's once glowing face was now pale and drawn. Her eyes were heavy, her clothes often smelled faintly of smoke and gasoline. Richard tried to impose curfews, but Emily ignored them. She said she was studying with friends. Michael knew better. One Saturday morning, Michael knocked on her door at 9 a.m. "Get up. I'm taking you somewhere." "I'm tired," Emily muttered from under her blanket. "I'm not asking." She groaned, but eventually got dressed and followed him to his car, sulking the entire time. He drove them to Lady Bird Lake, where they used to rent kayaks every summer. He didn't say much, just handed her a paddle and motioned toward the water. The silence between them stretched as they drifted out onto the lake. After 20 minutes of nothing but the sound of paddles dipping into the water, Michael finally spoke. "You remember when you were 10 and tried to race me across the lake?" Emily cracked a small smile. "I crashed into a duck." "Yeah," he chuckled. "And then cried because you thought it was going to attack you." "I was dramatic." "You were brave. You always have been." Emily looked down at the water. "You're still brave," he said quietly. "But brave doesn't mean reckless." She didn't respond. "I know you think we're trying to control you. But we're not. We're trying to protect you from people like him." Emily's head snapped up. "You don't even know him." "I know his record. Did you know he dropped out of school after punching a teacher? Did you know he was arrested for shoplifting 6 months ago?" Her eyes widened. "That's not true." Michael pulled a folded printout from his pocket and handed it to her. "It's public record." Emily stared at the paper. Her stomach turned. "I'm not trying to destroy your life," he added. "But if you're going to make choices, make informed ones. You deserve that." They sat in silence as the kayak drifted. Emily didn't say another word on the ride home. That night, she didn't sneak out. But the next day, she met Jaden again, this time with questions. "You told me you never got in trouble," she said, arms crossed. Jaden leaned against the hood of his car, shrugging. "That stuff's old. It doesn't matter." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd react like this." "I just want the truth, Jaden." He stepped closer, voice sharper now. "You're acting just like your brother. You think I'm some kind of monster." "I didn't say that. But you believe him, don't you?" His voice rose. "You think he knows everything?" I don't know anymore." Jaden shook his head. "You used to be fun, Emily. Now you're starting to sound like them. Maybe this isn't going to work after all." Her breath caught in her throat. "Are you breaking up with me?" "I'm just saying, Figure out what you want. Don't waste my time. He got in his car and slammed the door, leaving her standing alone in the parking lot. Emily didn't cry. She didn't chase after him. She just stood there, staring at the empty street, feeling the wind sting her cheeks. For the first time in weeks, she felt truly alone. And strangely, free. Emily walked home that evening, the autumn air brushing against her skin like a quiet warning. The streets of Austin were quieter than usual, or maybe it was just her thoughts that drowned out the world. Jaden's words echoed in her head on repeat. Figure out what you want. Don't waste my time. She had never seen that side of him before. The angry edge in his voice. The way his eyes hardened when she questioned him. The way he drove off without even checking if she was okay. When she got home, the porch light was on. Her father's truck was parked in the driveway, and her mother's shadow moved behind the living room curtain. The smell of tomato soup wafted out the window, her favorite. It used to make her smile. Now it made her feel like a stranger peering in from the cold. Michael was sitting on the steps, waiting. He didn't look angry, just tired. Hey, she said softly. He nodded. You okay? She hesitated, then shrugged. I guess. You hungry? Mom made soup. Emily looked at the door, then back at him. I'm not sure I deserve any. Michael gave a faint smile. That's not how soup works in this family. They sat in silence for a minute. Emily fiddled with the hem of her sleeve. You were right. She finally said. About Jaden. Michael's head turned toward her, but he didn't speak. He got mad when I asked about his past. He didn't even try to explain. Just turned cold. Michael's jaw clenched slightly, but he kept his voice even. I'm sorry you had to see that. I thought he really cared about me, she whispered, blinking back tears. But I think I just liked how he made me feel, like I was in control. Like I wasn't some baby who needed protecting. You're not a baby, Em. Then why does everyone treat me like one? Because we remember the version of you that needed us, he said gently. It's hard to let go of that. But it doesn't mean we don't see who you're becoming. She sniffled, brushing her sleeve across her nose. I messed everything up. You made some mistakes, he said honestly. But messing up doesn't mean giving up. It just means you've got some rebuilding to do. She looked at him, her voice cracking. Do you think Mom and Dad will ever trust me again? I think they want to, Michael said. They're just scared. Same as you. They sat for a while longer, watching as the light in the kitchen flickered on and off, a quiet signal from their mother that dinner was ready. Emily stood up, her voice shaky. I'll eat. Then. Maybe I'll tell them. Michael smiled. That sounds like a plan. Dinner was quiet. Linda served each bowl of soup with careful hands. Richard didn't look up much from his plate, but he didn't seem angry, just guarded. Emily sat between them, eyes lowered, spoon barely moving. Halfway through, she cleared her throat. I want to say something. The room froze. Linda looked up, eyes already brimming. Richard slowly set his spoon down. Michael paused mid-bite, then leaned back in his chair. I know I haven't been easy lately, Emily began, voice trembling. I've lied. I've skipped school. I ran off with someone who didn't deserve my time, and I hurt everyone who loves me. Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. I thought I was being strong, but I was just being stupid. And selfish. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to fix things. I want to go back to school. I want to try again. For a moment, no one said anything. The only sound was the hum of the fridge and the ticking clock on the wall. Then Linda stood up and walked around the table. She wrapped her arms around her daughter tightly. Oh, honey. She whispered through tears, you never stopped being our girl. Richard didn't speak right away, but when he finally did, his voice was thick. We just wanted to keep you safe. Maybe we held on too tight. Emily looked at him, eyes searching. Do you hate me? He stood and walked over, placing a hand on her shoulder. Never. Michael raised his glass of water. To fresh starts. They all smiled. That night, Emily lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her phone lit up with a message from Jaden. "You done being dramatic?" She stared at it for a long time. Then, without replying, she deleted his number. The weight on her chest lightened. Tomorrow would be hard. She would have to talk to her teachers, catch up on missed assignments, face the stares at school. But tonight, she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Monday morning felt different. Emily stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair with slow, thoughtful strokes. Her school uniform, once shoved in the back of the closet, was now neatly ironed and buttoned all the way to the collar. She tied her sneakers, grabbed her backpack, and looked at herself again, really looked. Her reflection stared back, a little tired, a little scared, but more real than it had been in weeks. Downstairs, Michael was waiting by the car. "You sure you're ready?" he asked. Emily took a deep breath. "No, but I want to be." They drove to school in silence, but it was a comfortable one this time. Emily clutched her backpack like armor, her fingers trembling as they pulled into the parking lot. Kids filed into the building in clumps, chatting, laughing, staring at their phones. The sight made her stomach twist. Michael parked but didn't get out. "I can walk you in if you want," he offered. Emily shook her head. "I need to do this by myself." He nodded. "Call me if you need anything." "I mean it." She opened the door, paused, then turned back and hugged him tightly. "Thanks, Mike, for not giving up on me." He smiled into her hair. "Never." The hallways smelled like old textbooks and disinfectant. Emily's shoes squeaked on the waxed floors as she walked to her first class. People turned and stared. Some whispered. A few girls giggled behind cupped hands. One of her former friends, Alyssa, glanced her way, eyes narrowed with judgment, then looked back at her phone. Emily kept walking. She walked into homeroom and handed Mr. Bryant a folded letter from her parents, explaining her recent absences. He read it silently, then looked up at her. "I'm glad to see you back, Emily," he said kindly. "You've got some work to catch up on, but if you're committed, we'll help you get there." "Thank you," she replied, voice small but sincere. She spent the day moving between classes like a ghost. Most teachers offered her understanding, if not warmth. A few classmates offered awkward waves. No one invited her to sit at lunch. So she ate alone beneath a tree in the courtyard, picking at a sandwich more out of habit than hunger. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. That night, Linda peeked into Emily's room and found her surrounded by notebooks and textbooks. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she was scribbling answers into a worksheet. "You need anything?" Linda asked gently. "A time machine," Emily replied with a wry smile. Linda chuckled. "All I have is chamomile tea." "I'll take it." Linda brought the mug to her and lingered at the doorway. "I'm proud of you, Emily," she said. "Not because you're trying to fix everything, but because you're facing it." Emily's eyes misted. "I was so awful to you and Dad. You were hurting. And you were young. We've all said and done things we wish we could undo. But I scared you. I disappeared. And you came back," Linda said softly. "That matters." Emily reached for her mom's hand and held it. No more words were needed. In the following days, something unexpected happened. People began to forget. Not entirely, but slowly. Her classmates stopped whispering. Her teachers stopped looking surprised when she turned in assignments. Even Alyssa stopped glaring and started nodding politely in the hall. Emily focused all her energy on rebuilding. She stayed after school for tutoring, redid old assignments, and even volunteered to help the librarian catalog new books, partly because she needed extra credit, but also because the quiet made her feel calm. One afternoon, while reshelving books, she came across an old poetry collection and flipped through it. A quote scribbled in the margin caught her eye. "What matters most is how well you walk through the fire." Charles Bukowski. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she wrote it on the first page of her journal. At dinner that Friday, Richard spoke up for the first time in days. "I heard from your principal," he said, looking at Emily. Her fork froze midair. "He said you've made impressive progress this week." Emily blinked. "Really?" Richard nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "He also said he rarely sees students own up to their mistakes the way you did." Her heart soared. "I'm trying," she said softly. "We see that," he replied. "And we're with you." Michael raised his glass again. Water, of course. To second chances. They clinked glasses, and this time, Emily didn't just smile, she laughed. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emily opened her phone. Jaden's message thread was gone. She had deleted it days ago, but tonight she didn't feel tempted to check, to scroll, to reminisce. Instead, she opened a new note. Title: Things I've Learned. Love isn't real if it doesn't come with respect. Sometimes the people who say no are the ones who love you the most. Trust is hard to rebuild, but not impossible. Running away never leads you forward. You can fall and still rise. She saved it and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in months, she felt peace, not because things were perfect, but because she was walking towards something better. The following week arrived with the first crisp breath of winter. Morning frost sparkled on the windows, and Emily's breath fogged the air as she stepped outside to catch the school bus. She could have asked Michael for a ride, but she wanted to feel normal again, like just another student. Not the girl who had spiraled and come back from the edge. Each day now felt like walking a tightrope between her past and her future. People still looked at her. Some out of habit, some out of curiosity, and a few, like Alyssa, with a flicker of something new, respect. "Hey," Alyssa said one day at lunch, approaching her under the tree. "Mind if I sit?" Emily looked up, startled. Sure." They sat in awkward silence for a moment before Alyssa broke it. "You've changed." "I had to." Alyssa nodded, fiddling with her bracelet. "Most people don't. They just pretend for a while and then slide back." Emily gave a small smile. "I don't want to go back." "Well, if you ever want to hang out again. I mean, no pressure." Emily blinked, surprised. "Thanks. I might take you up on that." Alyssa smiled back before walking away. Just like that, a bridge that had once been burned now had its first wooden plank. That evening, as Emily walked home from school, she passed the old corner gas station, the one where Jaden used to wait for her. She hadn't walked this way in weeks. Not since the night she had slipped out and everything had begun to fall apart. This time, she walked slower. She stopped by the bench near the station and sat for a moment, taking in the chipped paint, the flickering sign, the cracked pavement. It all looked smaller now. Less magical. Less dangerous. Just ordinary. She remembered the way Jaden had leaned against his car, cocky and smiling, telling her she was different. Back then, those words had meant everything. Now, they meant nothing. As she stood up to leave, a familiar voice called out from behind her. "Well, look who it is." Jaden. He stood by the payphone, cigarette in hand. That same cocky grin on his face, but something about him looked more worn now. His eyes were duller, his clothes more ragged. Emily froze, heart thudding. He took a step closer. "I've been wondering when you'd show up again." "I'm not here for you," she said flatly. "Come on, Em. Don't be like that." He flicked the cigarette away and smirked. "I've missed you." She stared at him for a long second. "You don't even know what missing means." He scoffed. "You're still angry." "That's cute." She crossed her arms. "No, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done." He raised an eyebrow. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I know I'm better without you." Jaden laughed bitterly. "You'll come running back. Girls like you always do." Emily looked him in the eye. "Not this time." Then she turned and walked away. Her hands trembled. Her pulse raced. But she didn't look back. Back home. Michael was in the kitchen making tea when she walked in. "You okay?" he asked, handing her a mug. "I saw Jaden," she said, accepting the cup. His body stiffened. "Did he say anything?" "Yeah, but I said more." She took a sip of tea and smiled faintly. "I told him I was done." Michael let out a slow breath, visibly relaxing. "Proud of you." "I didn't think I could do it," she admitted. "But when I saw him, he just looked small. Like all the power I thought he had was just something I gave him." Michael smiled. "That's how it works sometimes. We hand people pieces of ourselves and forget we can take them back." Emily nodded, the weight in her chest lifting. "I'm ready to move on." Later that week, Emily met with her guidance counselor. "Mrs. Green, you've caught up with your coursework faster than expected," Mrs. Green said, flipping through a file. "And your teachers say you've become a positive presence in class. I'm impressed." "Thank you," Emily said, beaming. Mrs. Green leaned forward. "Have you thought about your future?" "College, maybe?" Emily hesitated. "I used to think college wasn't for me. But now, I think I want to study psychology. Maybe become a counselor like you." Mrs. Green smiled warmly. "I think you'd be great at it." For the first time in a long time, Emily didn't feel like a lost cause. She felt like a girl with a future. That night, she sat with her family for dinner. Michael shared a funny story from work. Richard grumbled about a customer who spent 2 hours browsing and didn't buy anything, and Linda laughed so hard she spilled her water. Emily looked around the table and smiled. This was home. It wasn't perfect. It never had been. But it was real. And it was hers. The second semester began with the smell of new books and the sound of rustling notebooks. The hallways at Austin High buzzed with talk about prom, college applications, and senior projects. Emily walked among the crowd, her backpack slung neatly over one shoulder, her steps steady. For the first time since everything unraveled, she didn't feel like she had to hide. At her locker, she found a sticky note with careful handwriting. "Keep going. You've got this." "Hey, Alyssa." Emily smiled, tucking the note into her planner. The simple act meant more than words could say. Friendship was returning, not in grand gestures, but in quiet, gentle ripples. As she stepped into English class, Mr. Bryant waved her over. "Emily, could I see you for a moment?" Her stomach tensed as she approached his desk. "I wanted to ask if you'd consider speaking at the senior forum next month," he said. Emily blinked. "Me? Why? You've had a journey most of your peers can't imagine. And you turned it around. Some students need to hear that it's possible." Emily hesitated. The thought of standing in front of hundreds of students made her hands clammy. I'm not sure I'm the right person." "Mr." Bryant leaned back, folding his arms. "Sometimes the right person is the one who never thought they'd be." She nodded slowly. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. Let me know by next Friday." That night, she sat on the couch beside Michael, flipping through college brochures while the TV played in the background. "Hey," she said, nudging him. "Did you ever have to do public speaking in school?" Michael laughed. "Yeah, junior year. I passed out in front of my whole history class." Emily burst out laughing. "Seriously?" "Dead serious." "Hit the floor. The janitor thought I was having a seizure." She snorted. "That's not helping. Look, you'll be nervous. Everyone is. But you've got a story that matters. Don't let fear stop you." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thanks. You're the annoying big brother I didn't know I needed." He grinned. "And don't you forget it." Over the next week, Emily thought a lot about the forum. What would she say? How could she turn all the mess and pain into something meaningful? One evening, she opened her journal and began to write not a speech, but just thoughts, memories, lessons, things she wished someone had told her when she felt like she was falling. She wrote about trust and betrayal. She wrote about how easily love could be confused with control. She wrote about the night she left home and the silence that followed. And she wrote about coming back, not because she was forgiven, but because she finally forgave herself. On Friday morning, she handed Mr. Bryant a folded sheet of paper. "I'll do it," she said. He smiled and nodded. "You won't regret it." The following Monday, Emily was invited to join a peer support group at school, a small circle of students who met once a week to talk about everything from stress and family to future dreams and mistakes made. At first, she didn't say much. She listened as others shared stories that echoed parts of her own. A boy who struggled with his dad's expectations. A girl who left home for a month and returned to find everything changed. Then, during the third meeting, Emily spoke. "My name's Emily," she said. "Last semester, I ran away from home. I thought I knew what love was, and I thought my family was the enemy." The room went still. "I was wrong," she continued. "And I nearly ruined everything. But I came back. I asked for help. And I'm learning to be okay with not being perfect." There was silence for a moment. Then someone clapped. Then another. And another. She didn't cry, but her heart swelled in a way that surprised her. At home, Emily started waking up earlier. She made her own breakfast, helped her mom with dinner, even sat in her dad's bookstore on weekends, sorting shelves and greeting customers. One afternoon, a girl around 10 years old came in, dragging her feet, clearly upset. "What's wrong?" Emily asked gently as the girl wandered near the counter. "My brother yelled at me," the girl pouted. "He says I don't listen." Emily crouched beside her. "I bet he just wants you to be safe." The girl frowned. "He says I act like I'm the only person in the world." Emily chuckled softly. "I used to act that way too. It's okay. Growing up takes time." The girl looked at her curiously. "Are you a grown-up?" Emily paused, then smiled. "Almost." That evening, Richard pulled Emily aside. "You've been good with the shop lately," he said. "I like being here," she replied. He nodded. "You're different. Stronger. Wiser." Emily blushed slightly. "I had to earn that." "You are. And you're earning it every day." He reached into his pocket and handed her a small silver key. "To the back room. Just in case you ever want to open up early or stay late." Emily took the key. Surprised. "Are you sure?" "I trust you," Richard said simply. She stared at the key for a moment, then smiled. It wasn't just a key to a door. It was a symbol of everything she'd been working toward. The auditorium buzzed with voices, sneakers shuffling across the polished floor, and the occasional creak of plastic chairs. Students poured in from every hallway, filling the rows from front to back. Some chatted idly, some scrolled on their phones, and others looked mildly curious about the guest speakers of the day. Emily sat backstage, her fingers clenched tightly around the note cards in her lap. Her name was third on the list. She had rehearsed the speech dozens of times, first in her room, then in front of the mirror, and finally in front of Michael, who had insisted on clapping after every practice, even when she stumbled. Still, now that she was here, the familiar wave of fear returned. What if they judged her? What if they laughed? What if she froze? She felt her breath quicken. Mrs. Green noticed and sat beside her, placing a calm hand on her back. "Nervous?" Emily nodded wordlessly. "Good, Mrs. Green smiled. "It means you care." Emily let out a shaky breath. "What if I mess up?" "You won't," she replied gently. "But even if you do, they'll remember your courage, not your stumbles." A student MC took the stage, her voice echoing through the mic. "Up next, we have one of our own. A senior who's walked a hard road and found her way back. Please welcome Emily Thompson." Applause filled the auditorium. Emily stood slowly. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded. She walked onto the stage. The lights blinded her momentarily, and a sea of faces blurred before her. But somewhere in the front row, she caught sight of Michael, nodding, and her mother and father sitting beside him, hands clasped. She took a deep breath, stepped to the mic, and began. I wasn't supposed to be here today. Last semester, I disappeared. I skipped school. I lied to my parents. I ran away with someone who I thought loved me, someone who made me feel seen when I couldn't even see myself. And when it all fell apart, I came home. But coming home didn't feel like a victory. It felt like failure. She paused. A few students shifted in their seats, attentive now. But what I've learned is this. Failure isn't the end. Sometimes. It's just the first step in figuring out who you really are. She looked around the room, locking eyes with scattered students who sat unusually still. We all mess up. We all feel lost at times. But we don't have to stay lost. The people who love us, the ones we think don't understand, they're usually the ones who'll be there when everything else fades. Her voice faltered slightly, but steadied again. I thought I had to run away to grow up. But growing up is standing still long enough to face the truth. It's apologizing. It's rebuilding trust. It's trying again, even when you're scared. She glanced down at her last no card, then folded them and set them aside. I don't have all the answers, but I know one thing. We're never too far gone to come home. Silence filled the room. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the entire auditorium erupted in applause. Emily's heart surged with emotion, not pride, but relief. Like shedding an old skin. Like being seen, fully and still accepted. Backstage, Mrs. Green hugged her tightly. You were incredible. Michael met her in the wings and wrapped his arms around her in a bear hug. Told you, he whispered. Even Richard's eyes looked misty as he gave her a rare one-armed hug. You did good, kiddo. Linda wiped away tears, whispering, You make us proud. Emily smiled through the whirlwind of congratulations. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was trying to be someone. She was just herself, and it was enough. The next day at school, everything felt different. People who used to ignore her now smiled and said hello. A few students stopped her in the hallway to thank her for sharing her story. I've been there, one junior girl said, eyes red. Hearing you made me feel less alone. That sentence stayed with Emily all day. Less alone. Maybe that's what she had always wanted. Not rebellion or excitement or escape. Just someone to say, you're not the only one. That afternoon, she found herself walking to the old tree in the courtyard, where she had once eaten lunch in silence. But this time, she wasn't alone. Alyssa sat beside her, handing her half a sandwich. Turkey and cheddar, she grinned. You like that, right? Emily smiled, taking it. Thanks. I meant what I said last time, Alyssa continued. You're not who you were. But I like who you're becoming. Emily looked up at the sky, blue and open above the campus. The storm had passed, and she was still standing. Not broken. Not bitter. Just braver. The college acceptance letter came on a Thursday afternoon. It was a gray, rainy day, the kind where the clouds hung low and the world felt like it was holding its breath. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through her planner when her phone buzzed with an email notification. Subject: Your application decision from University of Texas, Austin. Her hands went cold. For a moment, she just stared at it, heart pounding. Then, with trembling fingers, she tapped the email open. Her eyes scanned the first line. Congratulations, Emily Thompson. We are pleased to offer you admission to the University of Texas, Austin, College of Liberal Arts, Department of Psychology. She covered her mouth, tears springing instantly to her eyes. I got in, she whispered. Michael, passing by with a plate of toast, stopped mid-step. Wait, what? She turned the phone toward him. I got in. He hooped so loud the dog barked in the other room. Linda came running in from the laundry room, followed by Richard with his reading glasses halfway down his nose. "What's happening?" Linda asked, looking from Emily to Michael and back. She got in. Michael beamed. UT Austin. Psychology. Linda dropped the basket of towels and wrapped Emily in the tightest hug she'd felt in months. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." Richard smiled, a rare, wide smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Looks like I'll need to frame another acceptance letter for the bookstore wall." Emily laughed through her tears. For a moment, she felt like she was floating. This wasn't just about college. It was about everything she had fought for: the pain, the rebuilding, the long nights of doubt. And now, standing in this kitchen with her family, she felt it settle into her chest. She had made it. Later that night, Emily sat in her room, reading over the welcome packet and browsing dorm photos online. Her heart raced with anticipation, but also a twinge of fear. Change was coming. And this time, it wasn't an escape, it was a step forward. There was a knock at her door. Richard peeked in. "Got a second?" "Yeah, of course," she said, setting the papers aside. He sat on the edge of her bed, clearing his throat. I just wanted to say something." Emily folded her hands. "Okay." He looked at her carefully. "When you left, I was angry. Not because you disappointed me, but because I didn't know how to protect you anymore." She looked down, ashamed. "But that's the thing." He continued, "You didn't need protecting. You needed space to figure things out. And somehow, you came back stronger than I ever expected." Emily's voice wavered. "I thought I lost your trust." "You didn't," he said softly. "You just made me realize trust isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. And you've been showing up every day since you came home." She nodded, blinking fast. "Thanks, Dad." He stood and kissed the top of her head. "You're going to make a hell of a psychologist one day." In the days that followed, life moved forward at a steady rhythm. Emily started packing up little things in her room: books, journals, old photos. Every object felt like a breadcrumb of her journey, proof that even the broken pieces had their place in the story. At school, she was nominated for the Senior Perseverance Award, something she never even knew existed. When she received the certificate in front of the entire school during assembly, she didn't cry. She just smiled and nodded. She knew what it had cost, and that made it mean more. One evening, Emily and Michael went for a walk around the neighborhood. The air was warm. Fireflies blinking along the sidewalk edges. The sun was just beginning to dip behind the rooftops. "You know," Michael said, hands in his pockets, "you really surprised me." "How so?" "I always knew you were smart, but I didn't expect you to be this brave." Emily chuckled. "I didn't either." He paused. "When you were little, you used to climb to the top of the jungle gym and scream like a superhero. Remember that?" "Oh God, yes," she laughed. "I was obsessed with being fearless." "You still are," he said. "But now it's the real kind of fearless. The kind where you're scared, but you do it anyway." Emily looked up at the night sky. "I don't know what the future is going to be like," she admitted. "College. New people. New pressure. It's exciting but terrifying." Michael bumped her shoulder. "That's how you know it's real." She smiled. "Yeah, I guess it is." Back at home, she wrote one last letter. Not to Jaden. Not to anyone in particular. Just to the girl she used to be. "Dear me. You tried your best, even when you didn't know what that meant. You searched for love in the wrong places, but it taught you what real love looks like. You made mistakes, but you came back. You healed. You grew. I forgive you. I'm proud of you. And I'll carry you with me. Emily." She folded the letter, placed it in a box of old journals, and sealed it shut. Her past wasn't erased. It was honored. And her future? Still unwritten. But for the first time, she was ready to write it. The car was packed to the brim. Suitcases bulged with clothes, notebooks, and framed photos. A small box labeled dorm stuff teetered on top of a pile of pillows in the back seat. The passenger seat held Emily's journal, her laptop, and a carefully wrapped cup from her mother, the one that said "Start where you are." It was moving day. Emily stood on the porch of the house she'd once tried to run from, her fingers brushing the edge of the doorframe. The morning sun was warm on her skin, and everything felt still, like the moment just before a deep breath. She turned to face her family. Michael was leaning against the car, sunglasses on, arms crossed. Linda stood by the doorway, her hands folded tightly in front of her as if holding back tears. Richard stood beside her. His usual stoic face softened with something close to wonder. "You ready?" Michael asked. Emily smiled. "Yeah, I think I am." They made their way to the car, each step loud with meaning. Emily opened the door, then paused. She turned and looked back at the house one last time. So many memories had been made here, good, bad, broken, and mended. She walked back to her parents and hugged them, one at a time. "Thank you," she whispered into her mom's shoulder. Linda's voice trembled. "Go make mistakes. Big ones. Then come back and tell me all about them." Emily laughed through a sniffle. Her dad pulled her in, awkwardly but tightly. "Be proud of yourself," he said. "We are." Then came Michael, who simply held her close and whispered, "You did it." Emily wiped her eyes and nodded. "I'll call every Sunday." "You better," he said, smirking. The drive to campus was quiet at first. Emily stared out the window, watching the trees blur past. Her stomach buzzed with nerves, but not the kind that twisted. These were the fluttering kind, the beginning of something kind. Michael glanced over. "You know, I still remember dropping you off at kindergarten." She grinned. "Did I cry?" "You screamed. Like, full-on meltdown. Clung to Mom's leg like it was the end of the world." Emily laughed. "Sounds accurate. Want to scream now?" She looked ahead at the road, then shook her head. "No, I'm ready." The campus was alive with motion. Cars weaved between buildings, upperclassmen in bright shirts waved people toward dorms, and new students lugged bags and boxes with nervous smiles. Emily felt the energy buzz through her as Michael pulled up to the curb. They stepped out, and for a moment, she just stood there, taking it all in. The red brick buildings. The scent of freshly cut grass. The sound of laughter and directions shouted from bullhorns. It was loud, chaotic, beautiful. A girl with a clipboard approached. "Hi there. What's your name?" "Emily Thompson." "Awesome. You're in Oak Ridge Hall, 3rd floor, room 318. Welcome to UT." Emily followed Michael into the dorm with her things. The halls smelled like paint and dust, and the elevator creaked with age. When they reached her room, the door was open and a girl with pink headphones was already unpacking on the opposite side. She looked up. "Hey, you must be my roommate. I'm Tara." "Hi, I'm Emily," she said with a nervous grin. They shook hands, and just like that, something began new, raw, unfamiliar, but full of potential. By late afternoon, her bed was made, her books lined up on the shelf, and her desk decorated with tiny string lights. Michael helped her screw a small whiteboard to the wall, then stepped back and surveyed the room. "Not bad," he said. "Give me a week," Emily joked. "I'll have it cluttered like home." They stood together for a quiet moment. "Guess this is it," Michael said. "Guess so." He pulled her in for a final hug. "Go be amazing." She held him tight. "Thank you for everything." After he left, Emily sat at her desk and opened her journal. She flipped to the last page she had written. Then she wrote, "Day 1, college. I didn't think I'd make it here, but I did. I'm scared, but not of falling. I'm scared of missing the chance to fly. So here's to the girl who left home to find herself and came back stronger. Here's to the girl who forgave herself. Here's to the girl who begins again right now." She closed the journal and looked around the room. This wasn't a chapter closing. It was a brand new book. And she was holding the pen. College wasn't what Emily expected. It was more. More noise. More freedom. More people with dreams as big and blurry as hers. But also more loneliness between moments when the dorm grew quiet or the cafeteria felt like a sea of strangers. She tried everything. Joined a psychology club, signed up for a campus mentoring program, even attended a yoga class once. Her roommate Tara turned out to be warm and hilarious. The kind of person who offered granola bars and life advice in the same sentence. But even so, some nights felt hollow. Especially when she lay in bed staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars she'd stuck to the ceiling, just like her childhood room, and wondered if the Emily from 6 months ago would even recognize the son she was becoming. One Thursday morning, while walking across the quad, Emily's phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Hey, sweetie. Aunt Karen fell and broke her leg. We're taking turns helping her at home. Hope you're eating well. Love you." Emily replied. "Love you too. I'm okay. Miss you guys." She stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then typed one more message. "Coming home this weekend. Just for a visit." Linda's reply came quickly. "Yes. Dad will cry. He won't admit it. I'll make lemon pie. Can't wait." Emily smiled. A quiet warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't realized how much she missed home, her new version of home, where she was met with trust, not surveillance. Where her mistakes weren't brought up like debts owed, but reminders of battles won. That Saturday, she boarded the early morning bus with a small duffel bag and a fresh notebook tucked under her arm. The moment she stepped off at the station, she saw Michael waiting beside his car, coffee in hand. "You look taller," he said, offering her the cup. "You look exactly the same," she smirked. "Rude. Get in the car." They drove through familiar streets, the diner she and Jaden once hid behind, the bookstore where she used to shelve poetry books, the gas station where she'd cried herself hoarse. But now, they looked different. Smaller. Safer. He parked in front of the house. "Ready?" Emily looked at the porch, sunlight stretching across the front steps. "Yeah, I am." The front door burst open before she even knocked. Linda wrapped her in a tight hug that smelled of vanilla and laundry detergent. "I didn't realize how much I missed your footsteps in the hallway," she said. Richard stepped out from the kitchen, holding a coffee mug with the bookstore's logo. "Thought we agreed no surprises on weekends." Emily ran and hugged him too. "Hi, Dad." He cleared his throat, voice softer. "It's good to have you back." She spent the afternoon curled on the couch while Linda braided her hair like she hadn't done since middle school. Michael flipped through a photo album loudly, pretending to embarrass her with baby pictures. Richard sat nearby, reading quietly but glancing over every few minutes, a content smile hidden beneath his book. At dinner, they ate lemon pie and roasted chicken and laughed like no time had passed. That night, Emily stood outside in the backyard, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars. Michael joined her with a second blanket and handed it over. "College treating you okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. "It's a lot. But I like it. I like who I'm becoming." He looked at her. "You're becoming someone who makes people believe in second chances." She smiled faintly. "Funny. I didn't believe in them myself." They stood in silence for a while. Then she said, "Do you ever think about how it could have gone differently?" Michael nodded. "All the time. But then I remember it didn't. Because you came back." She looked up at the stars again. "And you waited. Always." Before going to bed, Emily walked into her old room. It was cleaner than she remembered Linda's doing, no doubt, but still hers. On the nightstand sat the framed photo of her and Michael from her middle school science fair. She picked it up, smiling at their awkward grins and two big glasses. Then her eyes landed on a small shoebox beneath the bed. Curious, she pulled it out. Inside were folded notes, old drawings, a worn friendship bracelet, and a letter. Her handwriting. From months ago. If you're reading this, you came home. And that means something magical happened. You chose love over fear. You chose truth over running. Don't forget how hard it was to climb back. But don't forget how worth it was either. Keep going. You've got more in you than you think. She clutched the letter to her chest and whispered, "Thank you." The next morning, Emily sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open. "I want to start a blog," she announced. Linda looked up from slicing apples. "Oh, a space for people who feel lost. Like I did. I want to share my story. Maybe others will feel seen." Richard sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "Stories change people." Michael leaned against the fridge. "And you're living proof." Emily nodded. "I want to be someone who reminds others that falling apart isn't the end." Linda smiled, eyes misty. "You already are." By Monday afternoon, Emily had designed the homepage of her blog. She called it The Second Sunrise. The tagline read, "For anyone who's lost their way and found the strength to turn back." The first post was the hardest to write. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because saying it out loud, permanently, publicly felt like laying her soul bare on a page. She wrote about Jaden without naming him. About the nights she left home and the coldness she walked into. About the guilt, the silence, the healing. She wrote about Michael's stubborn love, her parents' cautious forgiveness, and the strength it took to face her own reflection. She ended the post with a message. If you're reading this and you feel like you've broken everything, I promise you, you haven't. There's a way back. Maybe not to what you had, but to something better. You can begin again. And again. And again. She hit publish and closed the laptop with trembling hands. By the end of the week, the post had over 700 views. Emails trickled in. "I don't know you, but you just saved me. My daughter ran away last year. Your words gave me hope again. I left an abusive relationship today because of your blog." Emily read each one with awe. She hadn't expected it. Hadn't thought her pain could bloom into something healing for others. But it had. She printed a few of the messages and taped them inside her notebook, like small, sacred reminders of why her voice mattered. One afternoon, while doing homework in the library cafe, her inbox pinged with a new message titled, "You probably don't want to hear from me." Her heart stuttered. The sender was Jaden. She stared at the screen. Her palms went cold. Finally, she clicked it open. "Emily, I read your blog." "Yeah, I know. Weird, right? I didn't mean to find it. It just showed up on my feed. Guess we still have mutual friends." I don't know what to say. I read every word. Twice. You're brave. I wasn't good to you. I know that now. Back then, I didn't get it. I just wanted control. I thought love meant someone needing me. I was wrong. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. Truly. I started seeing a counselor last month. Trying to get clean. Trying to fix my own mess. Reading your story made me realize that maybe I don't have to stay the villain forever. Anyway, thanks for saying what you said. Even if it wasn't meant for me, it reached me. I hope you keep writing. Jaden. Emily sat frozen. Her heart didn't ache. It didn't flutter. It just opened. For the first time, Jaden wasn't the boy who ruined her. He was just a human being flawed, like everyone else. And maybe, in some twisted way, her healing had sparked his. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Some stories weren't about reunion. They were about release. That night, Emily posted again. Not every apology needs a response. Not every scar needs to be visible. Some healing is just for you. But if your story can plant a seed in someone else's garden, share it. The world needs more truth. Write it. Speak it. Live it. Word of her blog spread around campus. Professors began referencing it in class discussions. A senior from the sociology department emailed asking if she'd speak at a student mental health panel. Even Tara, her roommate, confessed she'd cried reading the post at 2 a.m. Just so you know, Tara said, "Your blog got me to call my mom for the first time in months." Emily blinked. Seriously? Yeah. I didn't even know I needed to. But your words pushed something open. They hugged tightly, no more words needed. Back at home, Linda printed out one of Emily's blog posts and tacked it to the bulletin board at school. Richard placed a stack of printed copies at the counter of his bookstore, quietly proud. Michael, of course, shared it with everyone in his office, even when no one asked. "You're kind of going viral," he teased during a video call. "Don't forget us when you're famous." Emily laughed. "If I become famous, it'll be for crying on stage and fixing people's feelings." Honestly, the world could use more of that. On a quiet Sunday morning, Emily sat in a campus cafe with her laptop open, planning her next post. The title blinked on the screen. "Coming home isn't weakness, it's bravery." And beneath it, the first line. "Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's the version of you that chooses to keep going." The leaves had begun to fall across the campus lawn, dotting the stone pathways in shades of amber and gold. Autumn always had a way of quieting the world, softening it, like the earth itself was pausing for breath. Emily sat under the big oak tree near the student union, grading papers for her peer mentoring class. She had just been accepted as a volunteer for the first-year support circle, a campus mentorship program for freshmen who were struggling to adjust. She'd hesitated before signing up, not because she didn't want to help, but because the idea of guiding someone else through the storm felt big. She wasn't a therapist. She wasn't perfect. But the memory of who she had been reminded her that sometimes you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Later that week, she got her first mentee assignment, Isabel Tran, age 18. Psychology major. Freshman. Low attendance. Dropping grades. A note from the advisor simply read, "Withdrawn. No disciplinary record, but red flags. History of family conflict. Possibly in a toxic relationship." Emily's breath caught. The profile felt eerily familiar. She typed out a message. "Hi, Isabel. I'm Emily, your mentor from first-year support. No pressure, but if you ever want to grab coffee and talk, I'm around. You're not alone. Hot beverage." Then she waited. It took 3 days for a reply. "I guess. I'll meet you at that cafe by the library. Tomorrow at 3. Emily smiled to herself. One step. Isabel showed up 15 minutes late, hoodie pulled over her head, dark circles under her eyes. She barely made eye contact. Emily didn't press. Just smiled and said, "Glad you came." They ordered drinks. Emily kept the conversation light, classes, professors, dorm food, horror stories. Isabel barely spoke, but she didn't leave. When Emily got up to use the restroom, Isabel glanced at her phone. It lit up with a message from someone labeled L. "Where are you? Answer me. You better not be talking to anyone. If you think I won't find out, you're wrong." When Emily returned, Isabel's hands were shaking. Emily sat slowly. "You okay?" Isabel looked down. "Just tired." Emily didn't push. She knew that silence better than anyone, the silence of someone holding everything in, waiting to see if someone would truly stay. So she stayed. Over the next few weeks, they met more often. Some days Isabel talked. Some days she didn't. But slowly, her walls began to crack. "I told him I needed space," she said one afternoon. Emily blinked. "And what did he say?" "He called me every name in the book, then begged me to forgive him, then said I'd regret it." Emily nodded slowly. "Do you believe him?" Isabel hesitated. "Part of me wants to." Emily leaned in gently. "That part of you deserves better." Isabel looked away. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. That night, Emily opened her journal and wrote, helping someone else walk out of the same darkness you escaped. It's terrifying, but it's holy too. Michael once said, "You don't have to be healed to help. Just willing." I think now I understand what he meant. A week later, Isabel texted at midnight. "Can I call you?" Emily answered on the second ring. Isabel's voice was soft. "He showed up at my dorm. I didn't let him in. But I'm shaking. I feel like I did something wrong." "You didn't," Emily said, firm but calm. "You protected yourself. That takes more courage than staying." There was silence. Then a whisper, "I think I'm ready to leave him. But I don't know who I am without him." Emily closed her eyes, her own heart tightening. "You're someone who said no. Someone who deserves peace. And you're not alone." The following Monday, Isabel filed a report with campus security and officially blocked her ex. She walked into the cafe that afternoon, hair pulled back, sweatshirt traded for a soft green sweater. She looked exhausted, but taller somehow. Straighter. She sat across from Emily and pushed a bracelet across the table. It was a simple string, blue, green, and white. "I made this in high school," Isabel said. "Didn't think I'd give it to anyone. But, thank you." Emily accepted it slowly, tears welling. "You just made my week." "I read your blog," Isabel added quietly. "The one about choosing to come home." Emily's breath caught. "Yeah?" Isabel nodded. "That was the first time I believed I could." Later that night, Emily walked across campus, fingers toying with the bracelet now tied to her wrist. She thought of Michael, of her parents, of the girl she once was frightened, defiant, desperate for love in all the wrong places. And then she thought of Isabel, standing in the doorway of her dorm, waving goodbye with a shaky but genuine smile. That was the full circle. Not perfection, not erasure of pain, but the gift of becoming someone who could reach back with steady hands and an open heart. The auditorium lights dimmed, casting a warm golden hue over the crowd of students, faculty, and guests. The annual Student Life Conference was in full swing at UT Austin, and this year, they had invited one of their own to close the event. Emily Thompson stood backstage, hands folded in front of her. The same nervous excitement she felt at the senior forum all those months ago now blooming again, but this time, steadier, sharper. She wasn't just a girl telling a story. She was a young woman who had lived it, healed from it, and helped others do the same. Michael had flown in for the event, sitting next to Linda and Richard in the front row. He'd insisted on wearing a suit because someone in this family needs to look like we run a law firm. Linda brought tissues. Richard held a folded paper with Emily's speech printed in 12-point font, pretending he didn't already have it memorized. Emily adjusted the mic pinned to her collar and stepped into the light. "Hi everyone. My name is Emily Thompson. And not too long ago, I almost disappeared." The audience quieted. Not in the literal sense, though I did run away. I disappeared from myself. From the girl I used to be. I made choices that hurt people who loved me, and I convinced myself that freedom meant escape. It didn't. She paused, looking out over the crowd. Freedom, I learned, is having the courage to turn around, to walk back into the arms you once pushed away, to say I was wrong and mean it, and then, slowly, painfully, to earn back the life you nearly lost. Nods from professors. Silence from students. The kind of stillness that meant every word was landing. I didn't do it alone. I had a brother who never stopped showing up. Parents who chose patience over punishment. And later, I had a freshman named Isabel who reminded me that healing isn't just for us. It's something we give away. Emily smiled, heartbeat slow now. I started a blog called The Second Sunrise. I thought maybe 5 people would read it. Turns out, hundreds did. And what I learned is that people aren't desperate for perfection. They're desperate for honesty. For proof that you can fall and not be finished. A pause. I'm not standing here because I got everything right. I'm standing here because I chose not to stay lost. She took a breath, voice soft but sure. If there's anyone out there who feels like they're too far gone, this is for you. You're not. Come home. Come back to yourself. Again and again and again. Because no matter how long the night feels, there is always a second sunrise. Applause started slowly. Then it rose into a standing ovation. Michael was already on his feet, clapping like she'd won an Oscar. Linda cried openly. Richard wiped his eyes and looked away like the lights were too bright. Emily stood at the edge of the stage, not basking in the applause, but letting it soak into her. Not pride, exactly, but peace. Backstage, as people congratulated her, Emily stepped aside for a moment and opened her phone. A new message had arrived. Hi, Emily. I'm 17. I found your blog through a friend. I think I'm ready to ask for help, but I don't know where to start. She replied right away. Start with this. You're not alone. I hear you. I see you. And I believe in who you're becoming. That evening, as the sun dipped below the trees on campus, Emily walked to her favorite spot under the oak tree. She sat in silence, watching the sky burn orange and purple, her journal on her lap. She flipped to a fresh page and wrote, Chapter 1, not the beginning of pain, but of becoming. Chapter 2, the stumble. Chapter 3, the fall. Chapter 4, the return. Chapter 5, the reaching back. Chapter 6, the sunrise again. She paused, then added, This isn't a story about being broken. It's a story about being brave enough to come back whole. Not perfect, but honest, real, and full of light. Emily closed the journal, hugged it to her chest, and smiled. She didn't need to be saved anymore. She had become the kind of person who could save others. And this time, the sunrise was hers. The winter wind swept across the campus lawn, carrying with it a fresh layer of golden leaves and a sense of quiet introspection. Finals week had just ended, and most students had gone home for the holidays. But Emily stayed behind for one more reason. She was giving her first guest lecture. Not as a professor, not as a professional, but as someone who had lived the lessons they were only beginning to teach. Professor Langley, her faculty advisor and a longtime supporter of her blog, had invited her to speak during the Psychology and Personal Narrative course's final seminar. They need to see what resilience looks like in real life, she'd said. Emily stood in the empty classroom before the students arrived, straightening chairs and setting down handouts she'd written herself. Healing is not linear. 5 lessons I learned the hard way. When the students filed in, first curious, then attentive, she felt it again. Not nerves, but presence. She began without notes. I'm not here to teach you theory. You already have textbooks for that. I'm here to talk about how healing looks when it's messy, unfiltered, and painfully slow. They leaned in. I've made mistakes, big ones. I left home. I broke trust. I tried to rebuild myself with the wrong people. But I came back, not to who I was, but to who I could become. A girl in the back wiped her eyes. A boy near the front didn't blink once, as if afraid to miss a single word. I want you to know that people don't need you to be perfect to help them. They need you to stay, to listen, to not look away when someone shows you their brokenness. She paused, her voice calm but steady. Because the truth is, healing rarely looks like a movie ending. Sometimes it looks like waking up and deciding not to give up again. After the lecture, several students stayed behind. A tall boy with quiet eyes said, My sister is going through something. I think I finally understand what to say to her. Another student, soft-spoken, said, Your blog saved me from doing something really dangerous. I didn't think anyone else got it. Emily listened to every word, hugged some of them, and repeated the phrase that had become her anchor. You're not alone. That evening, she video called home. Her mom picked up first. Face warm and flower-dusted. You're glowing, Linda said with a proud grin. Did they make you a professor yet? Emily laughed. I'm still just a student. Richard leaned into the frame. A student who teaches the teachers. Michael popped in from the side. Tell them I charge a consulting fee for inspiring you. They laughed together, something they now did often and easily. Later that night, Emily opened her inbox to find a new message with the subject line. Do you do school visits? It was from a guidance counselor in Houston who had read her blog and wanted her to come speak at a local high school where teen dropouts were rising sharply. I've been trying to reach them. The message said, but I think they need to hear it from someone who's been in the trenches. Emily stared at the email, stunned. Then she wrote back. Yes, I do. Anytime. The following week. Emily stood in front of a room full of high school juniors and seniors, some sleepy, some skeptical, some hunched over their desks like they had nothing left to give. She told them about her runaway night. She told them about Jaden, about Michael, about coming home. And she ended with this. You don't have to hit rock bottom to start over. But even if you already have, you're allowed to rise. And keep rising. She didn't expect applause, but they clapped anyway. Afterward, a girl in a red hoodie approached her. Eyes rimmed with eyeliner and pain. My mom told me I'm throwing my life away, she said. She's probably right. But hearing you, it made me think maybe I could still fix it. Emily didn't try to correct her. She just gently said, you don't have to fix it all today. Just begin. On the way home, Emily journaled on the bus. Every time I speak, I see her again. The version of me that almost didn't make it back. And every time I want to say, thank you for holding on just long enough. Because now look at all the hands I get to hold. As the bus rolled into the city, the sun began to rise behind her. It wasn't her first sunrise. And it wouldn't be the last. But like every time before, it felt like a beginning. Because healing doesn't end when the wound closes. It continues every time we help someone else find their light. Spring arrived like a quiet promise. The trees on campus wore fresh leaves, and wildflowers peeked out along the sidewalks. Students laughed in groups beneath the sun, frisbees slicing through the air, and textbooks splayed open like forgotten dreams. Emily sat alone on a bench near the old oak tree, now blooming again. In her lap was a letter, handwritten, folded 3 times. The paper was creased and slightly smudged, like someone had opened and closed it 100 times before finally sending it. It wasn't from Jaden. It wasn't from a stranger. It was from Isabel. Dear Emily, you once told me that coming home doesn't mean weakness, that it takes courage to walk back into the light. I didn't believe you then. I do now. I'm writing because I'm transferring schools. I need a fresh start. But I'm not running anymore. I'm choosing it. And that's because of you. You sat with me when I had nothing to offer. You stayed when I was at my most bitter and scared. You didn't try to fix me, you just reminded me I was worth fixing. I want to help people the way you helped me. I changed my major to counseling. This life? I never thought I'd get a second chance. Thank you for giving it to me. Love. Isabel. Emily closed the letter and pressed it to her heart. The wind moved gently through the branches above. That evening, she hosted her first writing workshop on campus, an idea she'd pitched to the university a month ago called Letters to the Person You Were. Open to students, faculty, and even community members. It was a space where people could write to their younger selves, to their mistakes, to the parts of them still learning how to heal. 15 people showed up. By the end of the session, everyone had cried, everyone had laughed, and every single person had written something that mattered. After the workshop, an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes approached her. She worked in the registrar's office and had quietly joined the back row with a notepad. She said, I've worked at this university for 30 years. I've seen thousands of students come and go. But what you're doing? She reached out, gently touched Emily's hand. You're building bridges, my dear, between who we were and who we're brave enough to become. Emily smiled, tears welling. Thank you. The woman nodded. You keep walking across those bridges. And never forget to look behind, because someone might be following, needing to know the way. The next morning, Emily woke up to a message in her inbox. It was from a high school in El Paso asking if she'd consider turning her blog into a small book for at-risk youth. The counselor had printed out her stories and read them aloud during a school-wide workshop. The kids keep asking, the email read. Who is the girl who came back from the edge? Emily stared at the screen, stunned. And then she smiled. That weekend, she returned home again. Not because she was broken. Not because she needed saving. But because home had become something she chose. Something she honored. Linda met her at the front door with fresh-baked lemon pie. Richard handed her a new journal with a ribbon bookmark. Michael, grinning as always, said so. Are you officially the wise one in the family now? Emily laughed. Only when you're not around. After dinner, the family sat in the backyard under strands of hanging lights, sipping hot cocoa. Emily turned to them. I think I'm going to publish a book. They all paused. Then Linda teared up. Of course you are. Richard nodded. We'll be the first in line. Michael raised his mug to the girl who left and came back with the whole world. Emily clinked mugs with him. To the people who gave her a reason to come back. That night, Emily stepped into her childhood room one more time. She pulled open the drawer and took out the shoebox of old memories, drawings, letters, tears folded into paper. She placed Isabel's letter inside. Then she added something new, a photograph from her workshop showing 15 smiling faces holding their letters. Some with red eyes, all with hope. She closed the lid and whispered, "This is what healing looks like." The next day, she sat on the bus back to campus. Notebook open, pen in hand. She began to write the first lines of her book. This is not a story about falling apart. It's a story about finding yourself in the rubble. It's a story about the people who wait for you, even when you don't know how to come back. It's a story for anyone who thought they were too far gone. You're not. You're just standing at the bridge. Come home. Come back. Begin again. The sun was rising outside the window. And once again, so was she. A year had passed since Emily first published the second Sunrise blog. And now, she stood in front of a large projector screen in a conference center in Dallas. Rows of folding chairs stretched out before her, filled with high school counselors, college advisors, youth social workers, and, most importantly, students. She was no longer just the girl who came back. She was now a speaker, author, and mentor. Her short book, adapted from her blog, had just been published under a small imprint called Voices That Matter. It had made its way into schools, counseling centers, and juvenile homes across Texas. The keynote speaker had just finished introducing her. And now, please welcome someone who turned her scars into stories and her pain into purpose, Emily Thompson. Applause. Emily took the stage with the quiet confidence of someone who had earned her voice. She began without a script. When I was 17, I thought love meant being wanted by the wrong person. I thought rebellion was strength. And I thought silence was survival. She let that hang for a second. But what I learned is that true strength is listening to yourself, to the people who love you, even when you don't feel worthy of love. And healing? Healing doesn't mean you go back to who you were. It means you grow into someone wiser. She paused, scanning the room. I'm not here to tell you how to fix your life. I'm here to remind you that it's yours to fix. And there are people, maybe even sitting right next to you, who will walk with you as you do. There were no distractions in the room. Only stillness. Only connection. After the talk, students came up one by one. Some wanted hugs. Some wanted her to sign their copies of her book. Others simply wanted to say, I see myself in you. One girl with a single braid and trembling hands whispered, I read your chapter about the bus ride home. That was the day I decided not to run away. Emily swallowed her emotion. "I'm so proud of you for staying." The girl looked up, tears in her eyes. "I want to help others like you do." Emily squeezed her hand. "Then you already are." That evening, Emily returned to her hotel room and opened her inbox. There was a message from a university in California inviting her to lead a semester-long writing workshop for students in recovery programs. Another message from a publisher asking if she'd consider writing a follow-up book. And buried among them all, one simple note from Isabel. "Still here. Still studying. Still becoming. Miss you." Emily smiled. Back in Austin, Emily walked through the psychology department halls. A new poster had gone up. Peer mentoring applications now open, led by Emily Thompson. She remembered the day she first walked into that office, shaking, ashamed, and trying to patch herself back together. And now she was the one handing out glue and thread. In the common room, Tara sat with a group of freshmen, waving Emily over. "Tell them what you told me that one night," Tara grinned. "The thing about bridges." Emily laughed and sat down. She looked around at the wide-eyed students, each of them holding their own invisible wounds. She said, "When I was falling apart, someone reminded me that broken doesn't mean worthless. It just means you're in the middle of the story." One student raised her hand. "How do you know when the healing is done?" Emily thought for a moment. "It's never done," she said softly. "But one day, you'll hear someone else's pain, and you won't flinch. You'll just reach for their hand. And you'll realize. That's the moment you became the bridge." That night, she journaled one final entry for her next book. "To everyone who thinks their story is too messy to matter. It's not. It's exactly the story someone else needs. Keep writing it. Keep walking it. Keep offering it to the world. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is, 'I made it through, and I'll walk with you until you do, too.'" Spring was blooming again on campus, but Emily felt a different kind of growth inside, a calm that came from truly belonging. She stood in the sunlit psychology building hallway, chatting with her men's about life, love, and the messiness of becoming. The kids had started calling her the Bridge, a nickname she accepted with humble pride. After the last session, Emily lingered near the old oak tree, watching shadows lengthen as the sun dipped low. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying scents of fresh grass and possibility. Her phone buzzed, a message from Michael. "Family dinner tonight. Mom made your favorite. 7 p.m. Emily smiled. Home wasn't just a place anymore. It was a feeling, woven through years of mistakes, forgiveness, and fierce love. Dinner was filled with laughter, stories, and familiar warmth. Richard shared a story about a customer who accidentally bought 50 copies of Emily's book for his book club. Linda teased Michael for still being the family prankster. Emily listened, grateful. She realized she'd grown into more than the girl who ran away. She'd become the woman who carried her family's love forward, healing the past by building the future. That night before bed, Emily opened her journal one last time. She wrote, "Home is not where you start. It's where you choose to return. Where the broken pieces are held gently, and where you finally learn to hold yourself." She closed the book, feeling whole. The dawn broke with promise. And Emily was ready to keep walking, keep healing, and keep being the bridge for everyone still searching for their way home. The campus was buzzing with energy as a new academic year began. Fresh faces filled the walkways, their nervous excitement mirroring the very feelings Emily once had stepping onto the same ground. But this year, Emily walked with purpose, a quiet confidence that came from having faced her past and found her path forward. One morning, as she made her way to the library, she overheard a conversation between two freshmen discussing their struggles with family expectations and pressure to succeed. The words tugged at something deep inside her, the echo of her own fears and doubts from years ago. Emily paused, then stepped forward. "Hey," she said softly, "I couldn't help but overhear. If you ever want to talk, I'm around. Sometimes it helps to know you're not alone." The students looked up, surprised, then nodded gratefully. Later that afternoon, Emily attended a meeting for the Student Mental Health Coalition. The group was planning a campus-wide initiative to raise awareness about the importance of emotional well-being and support networks. Emily volunteered to lead a workshop titled Healing Together: Stories That Connect Us. She wanted to create a space where students could share their stories without judgment, a place for healing through connection. As the group brainstormed ideas, Emily realized that her journey had come full circle. What began as her own struggle to find peace was now blossoming into a mission to help others do the same. That evening, Emily returned home to find her parents in the backyard, setting up lights and decorations for a small gathering. Michael was already there, setting up a projector screen. "Surprise!" her mom exclaimed. "We wanted to celebrate your first year as a published author and mentor." Emily was overwhelmed with gratitude as friends and family gathered to honor her journey, the hurdles, the heartbreaks, and the hope that had carried her through. Richard raised a glass to Emily, who turned her story into a beacon for so many. "May this be just the beginning." Emily smiled, feeling the weight of their pride and love settle around her like a warm blanket. Later that night, Emily sat alone on the porch steps, the soft glow of the party lights casting gentle shadows. She pulled out her journal and began to write. "Every echo of the past has shaped the song of my future. I am no longer the girl who ran away, I am the woman who came home, time and time again. And now I carry the light so others may find their way." She closed her journal, looking up at the stars. The journey wasn't over. It never truly would be. But Emily was ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Emily walked across the campus lawn as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows and bathing the world in a warm amber glow. The air smelled of early autumn, crisp and full of promise. In her hand, she held a letter, a thank you note from a student she had recently mentored. It read, "Dear Emily, your words saved me on my darkest days. Because of you, I found the strength to keep going. Thank you for being the light in my distance." Emily smiled softly, folding the letter carefully before tucking it into her bag. Later that day, Emily sat in a quiet corner of the library, reviewing her notes for an upcoming talk at a youth empowerment conference. The event would bring together students from across the state to share stories of resilience and hope. Her phone buzzed, a message from Michael. "We're proud of you. Keep shining." Emily's heart swelled. She thought back to the journey that had brought her here, the nights of doubt, the moments of fear, the people who never gave up on her. The conference hall was packed. Faces young and old, hopeful and weary, filled the room. When Emily took the stage, the applause was thunderous. She began simply, "Sometimes life breaks us down so we can build ourselves back up stronger than ever before." She spoke of her past, of running away, of mistakes made and lessons learned. But most importantly, she spoke of healing, connection, and the power of community. Her words resonated, sparking tears, smiles, and quiet nods throughout the crowd. After the talk, a young woman approached her, tears streaming. "Your story gave me hope. I was lost, but now I see the light." Emily embraced her, whispering, "You are that light. Never forget." That evening, Emily walked home beneath the stars, feeling the weight and wonder of all she had become. The road had been long, the path winding and uncertain, but she had found her way. The light in the distance wasn't just a hope, it was a promise. The morning sunlight spilled gently through the curtains of Emily's childhood bedroom, now freshly painted and filled with the quiet warmth of familiar memories. Today wasn't just any day, it was the day Emily would graduate, closing a chapter written in tears, courage, and endless hope. Her family bustled around the house, laughter and soft chatter filling every corner. Michael teased their mother about her graduation outfit choices, while Richard quietly arranged flowers in a vase by the window. Emily stood before the mirror, smoothing down the hem of her cap and gown. Her reflection was a tapestry of all she had been: the scared runaway, the lost girl, the brave survivor, the compassionate mentor. At the ceremony, Emily walked across the stage to the cheers of friends, faculty, and family. When the dean handed her the diploma, she felt the weight of every struggle, every step forward in her hands. Later, as speeches filled the auditorium, Emily found herself reflecting on the journey. She had come home, not just to a place, but to herself. She had forged bridges from broken pieces. She had transformed pain into purpose. After the ceremony, the family gathered in the backyard, sharing stories and dreams under the blooming oak tree. Michael raised his glass. To Emily, the strongest person I know. You didn't just survive. You thrived. Linda smiled through tears. You taught us all what love really means. Richard nodded, voice steady. Home isn't just a house. It's where you're loved. And you've made this family stronger. Emily looked around at their faces, so full of pride and unconditional love. She felt a deep peace settle in her chest. That evening, Emily sat alone for a moment, journal in hand. She wrote, "Home is no longer just a place I return to. It is the light I carry within, the love I give, the hope I share, the bridge I build for others. And this story, our story, is just the beginning." She closed the journal, her heart full. As night fell, stars glittered above, a sky vast and endless, like the future waiting for her. Emily smiled, ready to step forward into the life she had fought so hard to claim. Because at last she was truly home.